Hello, students, and welcome. Today, we're going to do a really quick but super important revision of the chapter Print Culture and the Modern World. Now, this chapter isn't just about some old machine, right? It's really the story of how one invention changed, well, everything. How we think, how we share ideas, and even how societies are built. So let's get right into it.
So this is the big question of the chapter, isn't it? How did a simple machine, just a press, change the entire world forever? I mean, just think about it. We went from these beautiful handwritten books that only a few wealthy people could own to the newspapers and books that are literally everywhere today. How did that huge leap happen? How did this one machine spark revolutions, challenge religions, and create the very world we now live in? That's the story we're going to revise today.
Okay, take a look at these two images side by side. The contrast is just amazing, isn't it? On one side, you have this incredibly beautiful handcrafted manuscript. It's a piece of art, for sure, but can you imagine how long it took to make and how expensive it must have been? And on the other side, you see a page from an early printed book. See how neat and uniform it is? This wasn't just a new way of making books, you see. This was the beginning of a whole new way of sharing knowledge, a real turning point in human history. All right, so here's a quick look at what we'll be covering. We'll start with the very first printed books, then we'll jump to the print revolution in Europe. We'll see how it created new readers and sparked big ideas, and then we'll bring the story to India. And finally, I'll give you some solid exam tips to help you ace this chapter. So let's start from the very beginning. Now, a common mistake is to think that the story of printing starts in Europe. But actually, it doesn't. We need to go much, much further back in time and all the way to East Asia, to a world of handwritten manuscripts and a clever early printing method called the woodblock. Look at this. What you're looking at is a page from the Diamond Sutra. And this is special because it's the oldest dated printed book in the world all the way from the year 868. It comes from East Asia, where the very first printing technology was born. Just try to picture it. An artist would have to painstakingly carve every single character onto a wooden block, then put ink on it, and then press paper against it to make just one copy. It sounds simple, but for its time, it was absolutely revolutionary. So what was this early print used for? Well, all sorts of things. In China, for example, the government used it to print massive numbers of textbooks for people taking the civil service exams. But it wasn't just for official stuff. As cities grew, a whole new reading public came up. Merchants used print for their business, and even women started reading and publishing their own writing. Then in Japan, Buddhist missionaries brought the technology, and it led to this beautiful visual culture. You know those famous ukiyo-e prints that showed city life? Okay, so from East Asia, this knowledge of woodblock printing slowly travels to Europe, probably along the famous Silk Road. But here's the thing. In Europe, the demand for books was just exploding. Everyone wanted to read, and woodblock printing was just too slow to keep up. The time was right for a major, major breakthrough. And this was the game changer. Meet Johann Gutenberg's printing press. Around 1448 in Germany, Gutenberg, who was a skilled goldsmith, came up with a brilliant idea. He created individual metal letters, what we call movable type, and put them into a frame. He then adapted a machine used for pressing olives to create a mechanical printing system. It was pure genius. And the very first book he printed with it? The Bible. Just look at this number. 200 million. That's the estimated number of books printed in Europe in the 16th century. Just the century after Gutenberg's invention. This wasn't a small change. This was an absolute explosion of information, a true print revolution. So why would a religious reformer like Martin Luther say something so dramatic? Printing is the ultimate gift of God. Well, because for him, the printing press was like a superweapon. In 1517, he wrote his famous 95 Theses, which criticized the practices of the Catholic Church. Thanks to print, copies spread all over Germany in just a few weeks. Imagine, that was completely impossible before. Now, this is a very important connection to remember for your exams. The printing press was a direct cause, a catalyst for the Protestant Reformation. It allowed new and critical ideas to spread at an unbelievable speed, which challenged the authority of the church and eventually led to a major division within Christianity. Okay, so now that ideas could travel so fast and so far, the power dynamics started to shift. Print began to change the relationship between the rulers and the ruled. It gave a voice to brand new ideas. Ideas about reason, about liberty, and about the rights of ordinary people. Pay close attention here, because this is a classic 5-mark question.
How did print contribute to the French Revolution? Historians usually give three main reasons. First, it spread the ideas of Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and Rousseau who were questioning everything. Second, it created a new public sphere where people could debate these ideas openly. And third, books and cartoons started to criticize the monarchy directly, making fun of them and showing their flaws, which made people lose respect for them.
And this cartoon is a fantastic example of that third point. You didn't even need to be able to read to understand this. It shows the common people being crushed by the nobility and the clergy who are enjoying life. Images like this were passed around everywhere, and they helped build this feeling of shared anger and injustice against the system.
Now let's fast forward to the 19th century. Primary education became compulsory in many parts of Europe, so literacy rates just soared. This created what historians call a reading mania. Suddenly, everyone was reading, and publishers, being smart, saw these new customers. They started making books just for children, magazines and novels for women, and lending libraries opened up so that even workers could borrow books and read.
Okay, let's bring our story home now, to India. Long before the printing press arrived here, India had its own rich and beautiful tradition of creating texts by hand. We had this amazing tradition of handwritten manuscripts in so many languages. Sanskrit, Persian, and all our regional languages. They were often written on palm leaves and were beautifully illustrated. But just like in Europe, they were very expensive, very delicate, and really only a small number of elites could access them.
This timeline is definitely one to remember. The very first printing press came to India in the mid-1500s, brought by Portuguese missionaries to Goa. For a long time, it was mostly used for religious books in local languages. It was much, much later, in 1780, that the first English newspaper, the Bengal Gazette, was started by James Augustus Hickey. Once print took hold in India, its impact was huge. It completely transformed society. It became a battleground for ideas, a key tool for social reform, and a powerful weapon for the nationalists fighting for freedom. One of the biggest impacts of print in India was that it started public debates. Think about the big social issues of the time, like widow emulation or sati. Reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy would use their newspapers, like the Sambad Kaumudi, to argue against it. But then the Orthodox Hindus would start their own newspaper, the Samatar Chandrika, to argue back. For the very first time, these important discussions were happening in public, in print, for everyone to read and form their own opinions. And print just kept growing and diversifying. The vernacular press, that is, newspapers in Indian languages, was so important. It connected people from different parts of the country and helped create a sense of being Indian. Print also gave a voice to new groups. Many women, even though they faced a lot of opposition, became passionate readers and writers. And just like in Japan, a new visual culture boomed, with cheap prints and calendars by artists like Raja Ravi Varma being found in ordinary people's homes.
Okay, so we've revised the whole chapter. Now for the most important part, how to turn this knowledge into marks in your exam. Let's go over some quick and practical tips.
When you get a 5-mark question, don't just start writing. Use a structure. Start with a simple introduction. Then give 3 or 4 main points or arguments. And this is the most important part. For every point, give a specific example. Talk about Martin Luther or the Sambad Comedy. Examples get you marks. Then finish with a good conclusion. And please learn your keywords. Knowing what vernacular press or chapbook means and using these terms correctly in your answers will really make you stand out.
And that's our quick revision of print culture and the modern world. Just remember the main story, how print connected people, spread ideas, and challenged power. Go over these points again. You've prepared well, you have got this. All the very best for your exams.